We want to discuss something in the Parsha, in the Rebbe's Sichos, and then make an attempt to find in it ourselves and to find some kind of a inspiration and directive for ourselves, which is really the most important part of learning in Torah. So today's Parsha, there are a few psukim that are really phenomenal psukim. Phenomenal, everybody knows what phenomenal means? Phenamel, is that how you say it? Phenamelne. It says, "Behold, I put before you two things, life and the opposite of life, good and the opposite of good. And I urge you to choose good so that you will have life." Which is in itself is a kind of a odd, strange statement. Who will not choose life? You have the urge to choose life. Who would not choose life? You should choose life. And then when you look in Rashi, it becomes even stranger. Rashi has a long discussion on this few psukim over there, and the whole phenomenon, the whole principle of choosing, that Hashem is telling us, choose this, choose that. And then Rashi actually gives an analogy, a mashal. A person, a man, is directing his son what he should choose. He's pointing out from his property, he says, I want you to choose a good portion, a good section from my property. And then he goes a step further, and he takes his son and actually places him in the property. And then he says, this is the property I want you to choose. In other words, it is so remote that even if he tells him, go through the property and find it, he will not necessarily make the right choice. And even after he places him on the property itself, still not sure how the son is going to act. The father then comes to him and says to him, this is the property you should take. And this is an analogy for what this psukim is talking about. This is an analogy for the overall principle of Yiddishkeit, the principle of the Jew making his decision, making his choice in life, identifying his path in life, and making, so to speak, this covenant with Hashem and Torah as a primary choice, personal choice. Now, Chassidus explains, I'll step back just one moment. The Sikha from the Rebbe, many Sikhas from the Rebbe that discuss this Indian are very rich, you can imagine, have a lot of details, a lot of aspects. I'm going to try to kind of navigate through them and get a few points across. Chassidus explains that the term choice, to choose, can imply two things which are very different. There is the word choice as applied, as used actually in the context of selection. Selection, to select something. Selection means that you have a blue suit and you have a gray suit. Okay, huh? You choose which do you like. Okay. Now, these two suits are very different. It's a question of, what suits you more. This is selecting between two things. Huh?
He said which suits you more.
I'm sorry?
He said the two suits are different. Which suits you more? It's like
right. Suits and suit is two different uses of the word. And as a matter of fact, sometimes if you have two suits in your closet, you have a blue suit and a gray suit. Sometimes you will wear a blue suit, sometimes you wear a gray suit, depending on where you're going, what you're doing. They're not one is selected and the other is rejected necessarily. In any case, this general area of selection, of choosing, is a choice made on the basis of some kind of rationale. Rationale? Everybody knows what that means, right? Some kind of reason. Right? Okay. And the choice itself has a practical implication. It is not something that necessarily touches you in your core, touches your soul, touches your essence. It has a practical reason why you choose one or the other. This is what's called in Hasidus a selection, a bechira, al pitan v'das, on the basis of reason and knowledge. Now, which you can actually know why you choose and why you're choosing. First, you know everything about this question, and on the basis of your knowledge and full understanding of it, you make your selection. Now, when Yidden and Hashem, let's say a person, a Yid, chooses to be a Yid, chooses to be, to put on tefillin, chooses to be religious. Now, although this is like a choice from the perspective, in the sense that there's a big world and there are many different paths, many different ways, that are open for him. But really, the choice is made on the basis that if he chooses the path of the world, he'll be miserable. He'll be unhappy. It's not his way. So it's not really a choice in the real sense of the word. We know people, generally speaking, somebody who ultimately, was raised in a different environment and grew up in a different environment and comes to Yiddishkeit. Generally speaking, he doesn't come to Yiddishkeit because, and on the basis of choice. He was constantly looking for something to satisfy him. He was unhappy where he was. And he was looking for something that would be suited to him, would fit his thinking and his beliefs. So it's not a choice between two options. He was looking for something specific, and then when he finds it, he says, I choose this. So, coming back to the analogy that Rashi presents, when the father takes the son and he places him on a piece of property, and he says, this is what you should choose. This is kind of, so to speak, outside of the realm of choice. He's actually saying, this is what you should choose. This is the right thing. In what way is it a choice? And yet, this is what Rashi presents as a choice. And Rashi says that this is what the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu is telling him. We're, I think, uncomfortably warm here. Is that a general agreement? No? Oh, that would be good. Fine, thank you. This is good. Good. And then on top of it, if the father takes his son and puts him on a piece of property, so the Rebbe explains the whole phenomenon of choice is kind of lost because, look, this is his father and this is his property, the father's property. So number one, who would know the property better than his father? Surely the father knows all of his properties. Number two, this is his father giving it to his son. So the father surely wants his son to have the best. So the son has absolutely no question, no doubt as to the validity, the correctness of the choice, of the suggestion that his father is giving him. So why is that, after all that, called a choice? He has no doubt. The father says to him, take this, take this. Well, he would be foolish of him to doubt it. Who knows his father's property better than the father? Who cares about his welfare better than his father? And here lies a key, an important concept in this whole concept of the principle that Hashem gave us a Torah, and Hashem declared us as His nation. And we declared Hashem as our God. That's what it says in the Pasha, Hashem Hamata Nevat. And all that goes into the category of choice. It's called a choice. I choose. The choice of Torah, the choice of Yiddishkeit, really, it is not a choice from amongst many choices, many options. There isn't not anything in the world that can substitute for Yiddishkeit, for Torah, for God. There isn't. It's not a question of choosing from amongst equals. On the other hand, and this is the key, on the other hand, we have very little comprehension of what God is, of what Torah is, of what Yiddishkeit is. All of us here and all of us elsewhere, I could say, how much ever we learn, how much ever we know, we understand. And it's all really just on the surface. We don't really have full comprehension of what this is about. We all say, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and no question we believe it and so forth. But what do we really understand? What do we know about Hashem? What do we know about the Torah? Moreover, as we mentioned many times, and you all know, that when Yidden actually accepted the Torah, on what basis did they accept the Torah? Not on the basis of, tell us what's in it, and we'll see if you like it. They accepted the Torah on the basis, we don't need to know what's in it. If you give it to us, that's what we take. Even though this is going to set your lifestyle and your life path forever. I don't need to know what's in it. I will know for later. The famous word which we say all the time, Na'aseh v'nishma. Be ready to do what you tell us. What's behind that statement? And in addition to all that, we say, this is called Bechira, this is called choice. How is it a choice if we don't know what you're choosing? You don't know why you're choosing it.
Well, choice because you're choosing to live rather than to die.
I'm sorry?
Choice because you're choosing to live rather than to die. Hashem said, choose, I give you choice to live or to die. Choose to live. We don't know what it is, but we choose to live.
Choose to live, right. Okay. Now, valid point. But in this psukim, the life and death are described as the result of good and bad, not the result of eating or starving. You're right. There's no challenge there. You're going to eat rather than starve, because if you starve, you're causing your death. Here we're talking about a different aspect of life. Good is synonymous with life. Bad is synonymous with death. That is in a different category. Where is the relationship between good and life? How much do we understand that? There you have to have already some kind of a sense, some kind of understanding. What is the relationship there? And as I said, the important point that we have to focus in and recognize that all that is referred to in the Torah as a choice, rather than something that's being imposed on you. You must do it. No, it's a choice. It's our choice. Choice without knowing what you're choosing. And yet we're saying it's a choice, and it's a choice that we identify with it. Say, this is good, and this is what we choose. So, in a nutshell, the answer is that this is called a choice, what's called, as I said before, l'maylo mitam v'das, a choice beyond reason, beyond knowledge. Okay, that's kind of a symbolic answer. And I want to discuss this principle. What do we have, and how do we relate, how do we understand the whole phenomenon of something beyond reason and beyond knowledge, beyond das? What is it? What do I know if I don't know it? Right? It's beyond us. L'mayla mitam das. It's above reason, above knowledge. So what do I know about it? How do I relate to it? How can I say I'm choosing something that is beyond my knowledge? The principle that is exposed, that's expressed in this whole concept, it was of enormous significance and importance. And I want to step out a little bit to a broader perspective, so to speak, and come to it from different angles, so we understand the significance of what we're saying. In our world, in the physical world, everything functions on the basis of cause and effect. Everybody knows what cause and effect is? Mm-hmm. Okay, if I push this watch, it's going to move. The movement of this watch is a direct reflection of my pushing it. That's called cause and effect. And therefore, anything you see in the world, the first question is, what made it happen? What caused it to happen? And we discussed it many times, that on the basis of this principle, if we should accept this principle as it's accepted in the world, as an absolute means that this is the real, this is the only truth there is, then we'll be left with a world that's completely empty of anything real. Let's take it to the human being. If we say that everything the human being does, there's a cause for it. There's a personal cause. I benefit and therefore I do. Something pushes me and I do it. So, on a simple level, don't steal from your neighbor. Why? Why should I not steal from my neighbor? I like his bicycle. Because he's going to steal from you. Huh? He's good. That's it. So, in order to protect yourself, your property, you say, we're going to make a deal, you and I. We're not going to steal from each other. And then there's a third person moving into our neighborhood. We go to him and say, look, you want to live in peace? Let's make up, we're not going to steal from each other. That, so to speak, becomes the basis for civil law and civility. Okay. Now, let us say if this goes on and develops into, like we have a huge society of millions of people, then you see something that is very attractive and you would like it, and there are 10 people around, and you can grab it without anyone knowing who grabbed it. What would prevent you from stealing it? Why shouldn't you? Somebody stole it from amongst 10 people. Okay? Go find who the thief is. You can't find the thief. In other words, this is so oversimplifying, but it's really a very true principle. If we are going to view the world from that perspective, which means there isn't an essential, a primary, a fundamental reason for any good and bad. It is all based on cause and effect. Then there isn't a real sense of human life. I've mentioned many times that the principle of the human being in the world. I mentioned many times and pose it as a question. What would the world be like if there were no human beings? There were only animals. And everybody that I have discussed it with, everybody immediately realizes in his intelligence that that would be a meaningless world. And why is it meaningless? Look, the animals fend for themselves. They have young. They feed their young. They also hunt. They also feed. They protect them. Why is it meaningless?
It wouldn't serve any other purpose.
I'm sorry?
It wouldn't serve any other purpose. It wouldn't serve any other purpose.
I don't hear.
It wouldn't serve any purpose.
It doesn't serve any purpose. It's an enclosed cycle, and everything is just, all contained within this closed cycle. How is a human being different? What makes a difference? How is a human being different? We say, being one human being in a huge world of animals, all of a sudden the world becomes meaningful. What is so different? And the answer is, it's simple. The human being brings to the world an essential value. He says that to be good is not just for the purpose of some kind of a benefit. There is there's a true element of goodness. And that is what life is about. Ultimately, this is beyond goodness. He says that there is a creator, there is a godly cause for the world. This also we discussed many times, but now is a good time to review this. The Medrash says, and I'm looking it down, that Avraham Avinu was 3 years old. Avraham Avinu, who was born in a society of idol worshippers. And when he was 3 years old, he began to start kind of reflecting and thinking as to what is really going on. What was it that he was reflecting? Now, what's idol worship? Idol worship essentially means that the world, everything that's effective in the world is contained within the world. There is this power, there's that star, and that a rock, or whatever it is, that belief. It's all within the confines of the world. One thing is affecting the other. And they had all kinds of statues, and say that if you make this statue brings some kind of a super spirit, and it has this effect and this effect. Avraham Avinu said, all of this doesn't make any sense. And he actually took him many years to come to a conclusion as to what is really happening. It wasn't just overnight. He decided. He was not satisfied something doesn't make sense. The whole world over here there is so much going on. A whole cycle. There's a daily cycle, there's a weekly cycle, there's a monthly cycle, a yearly cycle. a whole huge cycle of things. Winter, summer, and rejuvenation, going to sleep. All this is just happening out of nothing. And to say that this was just a natural cycle also did not make sense to him. Like we say, the sun rises, the sun sets, this is a natural cycle. There has to be something real, some purpose to it, some intent, something fundamental real. And as a result of that, Avraham Avinu was doing his research, and for years, decades on end, he was studying and thinking. And at the end of all his thinking, he came to a conclusion, and here's the point. Avraham Avinu came to this conclusion, that the real soul, the real cause for everything that's happening in the world is really from outside of the world. The world itself does not really contain the cause and the soul for its own cycle of life. Within the world itself, there's absolutely no reason that it should continue to exist. There's an influx from outside, something that is infinitely greater, and something that is infinite in itself, that is real in itself. This is what gives life and gives purpose to the world. This is a principle that the human being brings to the world. What is it? In what way does it bring it to the world? The human being has what we call seichel. Seichel means intelligence. And what is the principle of intelligence? What is the principle of intelligence? There is emotion and there is intelligence. Emotion is that which one experiences from a personal perspective. I like it, I don't like it. It's pleasant, it's not pleasant. Intelligence is that which insists that there is something true in and of itself, nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with whether I like it or not. The terminology that uses is objective knowledge. In other words, it's nothing to do with my liking it or not. It has to do with truth per se. This whole concept, the whole concept that there is such a thing as a truth, then doesn't exist in the world if not for the human being. The human being, he is the one who insists that there is a truth. And this is why he changed the whole perspective of the world. There's something real in the world. It's not just an ongoing cause and effect. Push comes to shove. You know what I'm saying? Something real. Now, this reality, it's very difficult for us. It's almost impossible, really, for us to really conceptualize it and understand it. What kind of reality is this? The only thing we do know about it is that we, as human beings, know that it exists. But what is it? This is what's called beyond our knowledge, beyond our comprehension. Because comprehension depends on anything that we can lay out, we can explain logically. There's no logic to it. It's not a logical thing. It's an essential truth itself. Let me connect it back to what we started talking, and then I'll come back and discuss it more. Thus, this is what the Torah is saying. There is good and there is bad. Good and bad is not referring to good, beneficial or not beneficial. Beneficial, nobody has to convince you. You're going to choose that which is beneficial. It's not even called a choice. It's an obvious selection. We are talking about good in terms of an essential, something that is identified as good only in your intelligence, not on a practical level. Because, and this is only identified in your intelligence, it does not have, so to speak, a tangible reality in the world. This is why, after all is said and done, after all that you identify, you see this is good and told us out with everything, and even the Father puts your hand on it and says, this is the property you should choose. You still have to make a decision to choose it. Doesn't happen automatically. Because at the end of the day, in other words, after all that exposition, there is no tangible reason what you are choosing and why you're choosing it. I gave you a very, not long ago, a very narrow, limited exposure to this concept. Remember, I mentioned that the Gemara says, I'm going to quote from the Gemara and then I'll translate it. The Gemara says, "Odom roitze b'kaf shaloi mitisha kav mishal chaveirei." I don't know if any of you ever came across that Gemara. It's a Gemara in Mitzia. No, you didn't come across it. I'll explain to you what it is. It's not a difficult concept. The Gemara says that a person prefers one measure, 1 pound, whatever it is, one wagonful, one measure of something that was produced, that he himself produced in his own field, over 9 times as much that he acquired from outside. And there's halachic ramifications from this. There's halachic ramifications, such as that if you obligated yourself to safeguard, to watch somebody's produce, he has to put it away in your house and watch it from me until I return, or whatever period of time. And you're guarding it. Then you see that, whatever, in those days, mice are attacking this produce. And if mice attack it long enough, it's not going to be anything left. So there's a whole discussion in the halacha, at what point are you supposed to pick it up and sell it to safeguard his property. So we say that if the loss is minimal, you shouldn't touch it. And I would say if there's a loss, but there's an ongoing loss, but it's under a certain minimum, you shouldn't touch it. Why? Even though if you sell it, and then when he comes back, he will be able to give him the money, he'll be able to buy more than what will be left. So he says, well, he prefers one measure of his own than 9 measures that he will be able to get from outside. Now, This, the Gemara said, this is a human. There's a human quality to this concept. Now, practically speaking, this doesn't make any sense. What is produce for? To eat, to feed your family.
Consume.
Huh?
To consume. To consume it.
To consume it, to eat it.
Right.
So if you have 9 times as much, you can feed your family 9 times as long. So what's the logic? That one measure is preferable to 9 times as much. And the Gemara says, Odom Roitze, a person prefers, he likes it, he is attached to it. I want to give you a little bit of an explanation that's behind it. It's important that we develop, so to speak, a perception of how the Gemara, how the Torah looks at the human being. The produce that he produced in his own field, he watched it grow from nothingness, from non-existence. In other words, he saw God's hand in its production. He put a seed into the ground, and then, with God's blessing, with the miracle of God's creation, this came out and it grew and became produce. This is something to him, it's like a godly gift.
It's all connected.
It's real. If you go to the store and you buy it, it's produce to eat, but it's a fait accompli, it's a finished product. He didn't see the godly element in it. He didn't see it grow, it being created. He didn't see the miracle of its creation. He didn't see this being a godly gift to him. And that is of great significance to a human being. We know, and this is something which is a common recognition, that when the person, let's say, we also discussed it, when a person, let's say, wins a lottery. And it's a wonderful thing. He loses a lottery and he doesn't have to worry about finances anymore. It depends on the person. It depends on his background. It could be that he is intellectually developed to appreciate what he has won, what the value of this win is, and then he will know what to do with it and how to use it in a beneficial and a practical way.
Smart way.
In a smart way, in a beneficial way. There are many stories of people getting this enormous blessing, but they had they didn't have the intellectual capacity to appreciate it. They saw in this money just spendthrift. The Gemara says an interesting thing. I better from Halacha is the best example. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara says that real estate means property and ground property. Real estate has a special quality in that it is real. It doesn't dissipate. Right? It goes from year to year. You can sow it, you can plant it, and it produces and so forth. It's a limited benefit, but it's a continuous benefit. It's real. You take this piece of real estate and you sell it and you have money. With this money, you can travel the world. You can enjoy yourself. You can, fly around the world, live in the luxurious hotels and all that. It's wonderful. What is the piece of land going to be? So that's what the Gemara says. That up until the age of 20, and then some, depending on how a person develops, in youth, one does not appreciate the value of real estate.
What?
Does not appreciate the value of real estate.
Value what?
Huh?
Value of what?
Of real estate. He doesn't appreciate it. He appreciates $1 in his pocket. It's an interesting thing. Real estate, after all, is limited, right? It keeps you stuck here. Okay, so whatever you can drain out. What use is it to me? No use to me. Only when you mature, only when you are established in life, in a much more mature and settled manner, do you realize that the reality is much more significant than that which is the fluid cash. That which you can just explore and give out. Essentially, okay, this is, so to speak, on a worldly and on a low level, but this is the principle of a human being. This is also exposes the difference between a human being and an animal. And for this, human being has to mature, he has to grow up, he has to sense the real significance, what life is, what Metzius is. This, I said, this is just an illustration on a physical and on worldly level. But if we raise up and we recognize on a deeper level, what is a human being? What is life to a human being? Life to a human being, what is good, that which is real. And the ultimate reality is this godly principle. That there is something real, something purposeful and infinite. This is what the human being stands for. This is what the human being brings to the world. This is what the Torah is saying. That, yes, indeed, this is obvious, this is good, and this is bad. But this goodness is something which requires a very special insight. This is not something that you would choose, you would identify by experience and by experiment and by measurement. Even if it is shown to you, this is the good, you still have to come around and accept it. You have to accept it. And you have to open up your mind, open up your heart, go deeply into your own insight, your own soul, and say, yes, indeed, this is the real thing. And then, even though there are no challenges, there's nothing comparable, nevertheless, it's called choice. Why is it called choice? Because there is a special decision that you have to make to get going to it. It doesn't happen automatically, even though it's so obvious. Now, this is right before Rosh Hashanah. This Shabbos is going to be Shabbos Slichos. You all know what that is. Makes a Shabbos at night. 1 o'clock in the morning, we're going to go to shul, we're going to say slichus. And that inaugurates this period of the Yomim Neroim, what's known as the high holidays. And then we go for Rosh Hashanah, then Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot and Simchas Torah. It's a very, very special period, a month of a complete transformation, a new year, where the new year is being created from scratch. Rosh Hashanah creates it from the beginning, and then Yom Kippur establishes the last year, and then we have Sukkot and Simchas Torah. Rosh Hashanah is called the day of coronation. Coronation, everybody knows what that is, right? Which means that we, the Jewish people, by giving full recognition to the Meibashter, to the King of the world, we request that he accept the kingdom to be king, and thereby we coronate him. Now, what is this coronation of a king about? Why do we need a king? I can live my own life. If I'm talking about eating and sleeping and going on trips and flying around the world, I'd rather be without a king. He limits me where I can go, where I can go. What's a king about? This we have to reflect. Again, this is not in our day and age, so to speak. It's not such a simple thing to realize. But essentially, if I were to put it out in simple terms, imagine we live in a world, like we said before, just a world that's an endless cycle, without any purpose, without any meaning, without a beginning, without an end. What is that? What does that world mean to you? What is that life about? You live in an animal world. Without a king, without any significance, without any meaning, good and bad. Good and bad is who wins and who loses. The winner is good, the loser is bad. This is putting it in very simple terms. In absolute truth, for us, for the Jew, the principle of a king, this is what our life is all about. You know, the previous Rebbe went through very difficult periods. He went through the Soviet Russia, he went through the communism, and he was imprisoned, and he suffered enormously in those, even though it was a short period of time, but it was very, very tremendous suffering. There was one episode that he describes. He was sitting in the office of a KGB officer who was interrogating him. And the Rebbe had resolved, when we first entered this whole compound, he had resolved that he is not going to show them any deference. You know what deference means? Any kind of respect. Because they're acting like animals, he's not going to show them any deference. So he's sitting in this office, and he's being interrogated. And the Rebbe just refuses to answer his questions. So then this officer points a gun at the Rebbe. And he says, see this little toy? This little toy has made many people speak. And it's going to make you speak too. I don't know if you are aware, this KGB officer had every possibility. He had no qualms. He wouldn't have to answer to anyone if he would take a shot. Not like in a normal country, an officer, in America, if an officer shoots his gun off, then he has to face a court-martial. It doesn't go like this. He could have done it without a peeps. No one would question him. Zero. So he's pointing the gun at the Rebbe right there across the table. And he says, this toy has made many people speak, and this will make you speak as well. So the Rebbe sits there and looks him straight in the eye, in the barrel of the gun, and he says, this toy can scare only those who have many gods and one world. I have one God and many worlds. This toy doesn't scare me. It is true that you need a man of enormous character, enormous spirit and power to be able to go through this kind of conversation. But decide that this is not something that anyone can go through the test of it. But this is nevertheless the principle of Jewish life. None of us should ever be tested for it. But the principle of Jewish life is that we have one God and many worlds. And this is what our life is all about. And this is what the Torah is saying. You choose. The choice is not a question of how you live in the world. The choice is, what does it mean to live in the world? And this is why Rosh Hashanah, the center of Rosh Hashanah, is the coronation of the king. We must have Hashem accept our coronation, our plea to be our king. This is central, so to speak. This is our central purpose. And when that occurs, then we rejoice. Then we rejoice, then we celebrate with Hastera and we dance in the streets.
Just in case.
Спасибо большое. To whatever degree I was able to bring this point across, clearly this is a very rich, you can imagine there's volumes and volumes that's written in Chassidus on this. Just wanted that we should know the principle before we go into Rosh Hashanah. We should understand that there is a principle of choice. Unbelievable. There's a principle of choice. In other words, there's a principle of a decision. I have a rule that anybody serves me, it's going to be used. Because this is a human effort and it should not go to north. Even the sugar, which I usually don't take. So I really appreciate it. It is important for Rosh Hashanah to understand that each one of us are enjoined. We have to make a decision. There's a decision involved. This is not something that we just flow in. And the decision is that we recognize that we want to be Jews. Even though we're all Balachum. We're all in it already. This is what happens on Rosh Hashanah again. This is and this is called choice, because we have to fully accept it and fully recognize it deep down in our soul, deep down in our mind, and understand that this is what life is about, and without that, it is valueless, meaningless. So Rebbe should help all of us that indeed we should grow up and recognize this deep element in us, this human quality, not just the convenience and the pleasantness, but the deep human quality, where we can actually say, I know what I want, I know what life is about. And this will lead us into the new year. This will give us a successful year with God's help. And this will lead also to bring about that this year should be the Shnas HaGeula Mashiach.
Amen.
L'chaim. Thank you.
It's great.
You made me a dilemma. So do I have to make a bracha again on this tea or not?
Yes, you do.
No, we don't. Yeah.
Oh, what?
No.
Okay.
You're a guest, brother.
If you,
What?
You're a guest.
I'm a guest.
Wait, yeah.
It is true I'm a guest. That's true. The halacha. It's true I'm a guest, but I have access to the tea myself. But it's not like a guest who could not take on his own. You know what I'm saying? A guest means because then he's dependent. So on what basis could I make a decision? I had a dilemma. Should I make it the bracha or not? So you say yes, you say no, both.
Did you finish did you make the concluding blessing on that?
I'm sorry?
Did you conclude the bracha on that first one? No, right?
No, we're still drinking. It became cold. That's why my friend said
You
no.
don't have to, right? I would think so.
No, but when I made the bracha there, this wasn't around. I didn't expect it.
That's good Allah. So,
You would say your bracha.
Huh?
You would say your bracha.
Okay. But there's a left hand too. There's not only one hand. There's another hand. Anyway, it was a dilemma, and I personally decided that since this tea was also served to me, I didn't take it myself. So therefore, that means that I'm drinking on the basis of what people serve me, like you said. Therefore, I decided that I'm still not cut off because
you don't have to say.
they were going to serve me. Huh?
So you don't have to say.
I don't know. Well, that's what I decided.
All right.
All right, gentlemen.